Walt Bellamy, 1962. As a rookie in 1961-62, Walt Bellamy averages 31.6 points and 19.0 rebounds per game, becoming one of just 3 players in league history to post those numbers in the same season. He plays all 79 games for the expansion Chicago Packers and scores at an even higher clip, 40.7 points per game, in 4 head-to-head matchups with Wilt Chamberlain. Bellamy also shoots 51.9% from the field, leading all centers that year. Despite those staggering stats, he finishes 7th in MVP, voting behind veterans like Bill Russell and Oscar Robertson. The issue is team performance. Chicago goes just 18-62 in its inaugural season, the worst record in the league. Voters acknowledge Bellamy's impact with Rookie of the Year honors, but his MVP case never gains traction because the Packers remain non-competitive. Even Chamberlain, who averages 50.4 points and 25.7 rebounds, doesn't win MVP, underscoring how success in the standings trumps statistical dominance. The same logic reappears 2 decades later in Bernard King's 1984 campaign. Elgin Baylor, 1963. Elgin Baylor averages 34.0 points and 14.3 rebounds per game in 1963, while juggling a full-time military assignment. Stationed at Fort Lewis in Washington, Baylor plays only 48 games, just enough to qualify for the scoring leaderboard, but far short of a full campaign. His efficiency and dominance still earn him All-NBA first-team honors, but MVP voters place him 3rd, behind Bill Russell and Oscar Robertson. The Lakers go 53-27 and reach the finals, even as Baylor misses more than a third of the season. The vote favors durability and team leadership over explosive impact. Russell, with 11.6 points and 23.6 rebounds per game, captains a 58-win Celtics team from the center position. Oscar, meanwhile, averages a triple-double again, 28.3 points, 10.4 rebounds, and 9.5 assists while playing all 80 games. Baylor's part-time brilliance can't overcome the volume or consistency of his rivals. The 1963 race draws a line. Dominance matters, but only if you're on the floor to show it. Jerry West, 1966. Jerry West closes the 1965-66 season averaging 31.3 points and 7.1 assists per game, ranking 2nd in league scoring behind only Rick Barry. He carries a Lakers team that finishes 45-35 despite an aging Elgin Baylor and no other teammate averaging over 18 points. West shoots 47% from the field and leads the league in minutes per game at 42.1, operating as both primary scorer and playmaker. His consistency across 79 games helps the Lakers clinch 2nd in the West behind Wilt Chamberlain's 76ers. Despite his production, West finishes 3rd in MVP, voting behind Chamberlain, and winner Oscar Robertson, whose Royals win 48 games. Voters reward team records and statistical novelty, while West's excellence gets diffused by vote splitting with Baylor, who remains a perennial All-NBA presence. This becomes a pattern across West's career, where 9 All-NBA first-team selections never translate into an MVP trophy. The 1966 campaign remains one of his best chances before the rise of Bill Russell's Celtics dominance reasserts itself the following year. Nate Thurmond, 1967. Nate Thurmond averages 21.3 points and 22.0 rebounds in 1967, becoming just the 4th player in league history to clear the 2020 mark across a full season. He finishes 4th in MVP voting behind Wilt Chamberlain, Bill Russell, and Rick Barry, despite outperforming most centers in rebounding and defensive impact. San Francisco wins 44 games, but lacks the record or media visibility to elevate Thurmond into real MVP contention. His advanced stat lines, long before analytics become mainstream, go largely unnoticed, even as he anchors the Warriors on both ends of the floor. Because Chamberlain and Russell dominate the center narrative through titles and team success, Thurmond's elite production gets framed as second-tier by comparison. Even when he becomes the first player credited with a quadruple-double, later officially recorded in 1974, his career remains a case study in under-recognized greatness. The lack of postseason runs in his prime further reduces his exposure, and MVP voters consistently favor players from contending teams. The rise of Lou Alcindor soon narrows the center field even further. Kareem, 1973. In the 1972-73 season, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar averages 30.2 points, 16.1 rebounds, and 5.0 assists per game, while leading the league in total points and blocks. At 7-2, he anchors both ends for the Milwaukee Bucks, who finish 60-22 behind his dominance. It's his fourth straight season averaging over 28 points per game, and his two-way impact helps Milwaukee allow the fewest points per game in the league. Yet when MVP ballots are counted, Kareem places second behind Dave Cowens. Cowens, the Celtics' undersized 6'9 center, averages 20.5 points and 16.2 rebounds for a Boston team that finishes 68-14 8 wins, better than Milwaukee. Voters prioritize record over raw output, rewarding Cowens for being the motor behind the league's best regular season team. Kareem's statistical advantage isn't enough to overcome the Bucks' second-place status, reinforcing the era's bias toward team win totals. That same emphasis on standings resurfaces the following year, when McAdoo's scoring title battles voter fatigue. Tiny Archibald, 1973. In 1973, Nate "Tiny" Archibald becomes the first and only player in NBA history to lead the league in both points and assists per game during the same season. He averages 34.0 points and 11.4 assists over 80 games while playing nearly 47 minutes a night. Operating as the Kansas City Omaha Royals' sole offensive engine, Archibald produces 56.2% of his team's total points through scoring or passing. Despite the unprecedented output, MVP voters place him third, behind Dave Cowens and Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. The gap between individual production and team success proves too large to ignore. The Royals finish just 36-46 and miss the playoffs, weakening Archibald's case, even as he rewrites statistical norms for a lead guard. Voters instead prioritize Cowens' role on the 68-14 Celtics and Kareem's all-around dominance for a 60-win Bucks team. Archibald's 1973 campaign remains unmatched in raw volume, but without wins it cannot command the top of the MVP ballot. The league's evolving standards for MVP voting continue to devalue solo brilliance on sub-500 teams. Rick Barry, 1975. Rick Barry averages 30.6 points and 6.2 assists per game in 1975, while leading the Golden State Warriors to 48 wins and the top seed in the West. As a 6'7" forward with elite passing vision and one of the league's most accurate free throw strokes, Barry controls pace and initiates nearly every offensive possession. Golden State ranks second in scoring and closes the season with a 9-2 stretch to secure home court. Barry finishes fourth in MVP voting, behind Bob McAdoo, Dave Cowens, and Elvin Hayes, despite outperforming all three in offensive value metrics. The timing of the award cuts against him. Barry's true peak arrives in May, when he averages 29.5 points in the playoffs and sweeps the favored Washington Bullets in the finals. Voters had cast ballots weeks earlier, unaware that he would lead one of the most lopsided championship runs in modern history. His postseason dominance validates the regular season output, but doesn't alter the MVP outcome. The next year, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar reclaims the award with 27.7 points and 16.9 rebounds on a 40-42 Lakers team. Bob McAdoo, 1975. Bob McAdoo captures the 1975 MVP by averaging 34.5 points and 14.1 rebounds per game, while shooting over 80% from the free throw line, a rare mark for a 6'9" big. He leads the league in scoring for the second straight season and posts 30 or more points in 51 games, anchoring the Buffalo Braves' 49-win campaign. At just 23 years old, McAdoo becomes the youngest MVP since Kareem and the only player in franchise history to win the award. His combination of mid-range shooting, high-efficiency volume, and rebounding sets him apart in a league still dominated by traditional post play. Despite the numbers, McAdoo's MVP season fades from mainstream conversation. The Braves never build a lasting contender around him, and the franchise relocates just a few years later. His peak overlaps with a league in transition, struggling with visibility and attendance, which dampens the historical weight of his dominance. McAdoo's 1975 season remains one of the most productive MVP runs ever logged by a frontcourt player under 25. The next overlooked candidate rises 3 years later, playing just 58 games for a title favorite in Portland. Pete Maravich, 1977. Pete Maravich averages 31.1 points per game to lead the NBA in scoring, yet his Atlanta Hawks finish 35-47 and miss the playoffs. Because Maravich sits out 17 games with injury, voters question his durability, even as he makes the All-NBA first team. The MVP ballot reflects this skepticism. He lands 10th, behind Paul Westphal, despite topping every scoring list. Voters clearly prioritized team success over individual dominance in 1977. Maravich stands as the only MVP candidate from a losing club, a rarity in league history. His exclusion from the top 9 underscores how a sub-500 record outweighs a historic scoring title. This bias in MVP voting reveals a league that rewards wins more than gaudy stat lines. That overlooked MVP finish contrasts sharply with Walt Bellamy's 1962 rookie breakout. Bill Walton, 1978. In 1977-78, Bill Walton plays just 58 games for the Portland Trail Blazers, yet becomes the first and still only player to win MVP, while appearing in fewer than 60 contests. During those 58 games, Portland posts a dominant 50-10 record, the best winning percentage in the league at the time. Walton anchors the defense, averages 18.9 points, 13.2 rebounds, 5.0 assists, and 2.5 blocks per game, and serves as the offensive hub with high post passing that sets Portland apart. His impact is measurable. The Blazers collapse to 8-14 without him down the stretch. Voters interpret Portland's two halves, dominant with Walton, average without, as proof of his outsized value. But the postseason tells a different story. Walton suffers a broken foot in the first round, and without him, Portland loses to the Seattle Supersonics in the second. That injury marks the beginning of a long derailment. Walton plays just 14 total games over the next 4 seasons. His brief, brilliant 1978 campaign sets a high bar for value and directly precedes another debated MVP case, George Gervin's scoring surge in 1979. George Gervin, 1980. In 1979-80, George Gervin leads the league in scoring for the 4th time, averaging 33.1 points per game on 52.8% shooting. No player that season scores more total points or finishes with a higher average, and only Dantley comes close in efficiency. Gervin's output keeps the San Antonio Spurs competitive, but their final record settles at an even 41-41, barely above the playoff cut line, in a diluted Western Conference. That mediocrity undercuts his MVP case, and voters push him down to 6th on the ballot. Meanwhile, Julius Erving wins the award with 26.9 points, 7.4 rebounds, and a 59-win Sixers team that dominates the East. The contrast is stark. Gervin produces more offense, but Erving captains a contender. The 1980 vote confirms that voters won't elevate elite scorers unless team success follows a pattern that later affects Dominique Wilkins, Tracy McGrady, and Bradley Beal. Gervin's prolific run peaks here, just before Magic and Bird reset the MVP hierarchy around wins and narrative.